PBO people, players, and nation, you have no idea how long it's been. We are back, and in this season, season 9, we have added the Crystal Division. And when you add a new division, there's new players, demotes, promos, and with that comes power rankings. And there's two people who I needed to be the voice of this new Crystal Division in between Neon and Sunset. I will welcome in Jarv, Saw Weatherman, to the power rankings.
Hello, I am your den mother for this inaugural season of the Crystal Division and the PBO.
The Philadelphia PZs, as you see him on screen, he's a Sunset player, and he will be the head honcho here in this recording. And of course, one of the best voices in the PBO, the Columbus Conkeldurrs. Hello, welcome in.
Hello, friends. It's Kowtow. Thank you for joining me in today's Crystal Power Rankings. Very happy to be here, and I hope we have a great match today.
And unfortunately, in these Crystal Power Rankings, someone has to start off in a record fashion, being 14. So with that, without further ado, I welcome the Norwalk Noiverns, who's also returning to the PBO at 14. Jarvis, take us away, please.
I just want to start off going into the power rankings by saying that no one should interpret these as feeling bad or taking away that they shouldn't love their team. Obviously, every team is in the eye of the beholder, and if you really wanted to play with something, then who are we to yuck your yum? We picked this team to kind of be our bottom team, as well as the next couple, because I think they're all clumped in kind of the same tier where, if we had to pick someone to lose, if we're looking at the team side by side, we think these ones are going to maybe struggle to get into the playoffs. Just our prediction. A few things jumped out to me. I am quite hazard pilled, and I look at this team from Dill Pickle, and I see 1, 2, 3, 4 Mons that are immediately super weak to rocks, and Regieleki is like a good one-time spinner, but I don't expect this thing to live for all that long. It's kind of a must-bring on a team with a bundle, with an Enam, with a Dirge, with a low kicks. The poison type is Hisui and Quillfish. The steel type is Goodra, and it's not that these Mons can't be effective in a team setting, but when I and when Kowtow were kind of evaluating the teams, we're like, okay, do these have the fundamental pieces that we think a team needs to be successful? And we thought this one maybe was lacking some of those core pieces. Did I summarize that well, Kowtow?
I think you did. I think some fundamental pieces that you really need in this generation. One, you need good hazard removal. You've already mentioned that you're pilled on that, and I think that that's still a very important piece. Reggie does provide good hazard control, but without any kind of backup or any kind of any defog whatsoever, you're really just forced to bring Reggie quite a few weeks, unless for whatever reason your opponent doesn't bring any kind of hazards. In that case, then you're lucky and you can just run off into the sunset for free, but you still have a Regieleki that is bringing rapid spin. So that's one spot on your team that's always going to be coming, and that's one spot that can be exploited quite easily, in fact. But it does do the job of spinning pretty well, and it can bring screens to set up your Enamoruses, your bundles, your Landos. There is a lot of good hyper offense pieces on this, which may be forced to run like your lead Smeargles, your lead Quillfishes, kind of set your hazards up, and then just hit your opponent as hard as you can over and over and over again, because you don't really have a whole lot of pieces outside of Goodra and Chestnut to kind of take those hits, because one, your only fairy resists is Skeledirge, and it has a Terra. It is one of your Terra captains, so if you decide to Terra that into water or something, or even fairy, you effectively have no fairy resist, which is not very good. So there are a lot of pieces that are good about this team, but it's just some of the fundamental draft, I'll say checklists, check marks are just not crossed off. The speed is okay. It's a more so of a slow team than not, but there are a lot of holes that kind of need filled on this team, and a lot of very exploitable traits that go along with this team here.
There are a lot of things that, like Hatch said, that I like about this team as well. I am a huge Smeargle fan. I believe Smeargle gets several different kinds of removal, so that could be another option. But I guess going into a week or going into a matchup and saying Smeargle is going to solve one of my glaring problems, not really a recipe of success for me. For the two physical attackers on this team, I guess you would say Orlando and Low Kicks. I know that Enam gets superpower, but I think you imagine using it more as a special attacker. For these power rankings, I think the conversation typically goes as, okay, here's what I would change about your team, and it would make it better. I don't want to go down that route for the teams as we look at them. So instead, just to give something for everyone else watching, how would we attack this team if we were going to play Norwalk? Obviously, the rocks is hugely important to really break down Norwalk's team rather quickly, actually. Once the Skeledirge Terras, it's a lot of mons that are either close combat weak, or if you go for like a mid-ground option, it doesn't have great recovery. I think that's really it. Bundle might be specs. That's going to do a lot of damage to your team, but overall, this team is lacking kind of those core elements, and just putting together a team that's willing to live long enough to let the rocks put in their damage, I think is a great recipe for success against Norwalk.
Okay. Well, I believe we can just continue on to the next team here.
Hold on. Let me ask you. Soaring, have you ever been in love with a girl, and was her name Adelaide? Because that's our next team in the PBO power rankings.
No, it has never been Adelaide. Maybe it's TMI. You can go on.
Don't worry. Find out next time. And the next team, Soaring will reveal the name of his longtime high school crush.
Manaphy!
Manaphy. This was our second to bottom team, and we kind of were going back and forth between Norwalk and Adelaide. I actually, there were some elements of this team that I really liked. In my notes, I actually have it say, if you were one of the best players in the PBO, you could steer this team to 6-2 in Sunset or Stargazer. Great pivoting with Grimmsnarl, with Scizor U-turn. I do like Terra Excadrill. I am a little weather-pilled. I'm not the biggest Gouging Fire fan, but I know that a lot of good players like Dawn really like it. I'm learning right now how good of a glue piece Amoonguss is, so that's another one. I know Philly has been really on the Terra Manaphy train, but the more that we looked at this team, again, same thing with Norwalk, just missing some of those fundamental pieces. I believe this is a really slow team. I don't think anything above this or on this team goes above Latios. The Ghost is Haunter. The Fairy Clefable is very, I'll almost say mid, but then it's also your Terra Captain, but I don't know when you're going to Terra it versus Manaphy or Excadrill. With the speed challenges, you really want a Choice Scarfer to solve a bunch of problems for you. And when you look across the board, who are the best Choice Scarf options? Is it Manaphy? Is it Latios? Haunter almost comes up as the number 3 name. But you could run a lot of interesting sets with this. I think when we talk about recovery, another core element for Gen 9, Gouging Fire and Clefable get Moonlight and Morning Sun, which is actually halved by Sand, I believe. So some little anti-synergy there as well. I do like Galvantula on this team. I was looking at it for my own team. With a slow team, having a Weber is great, but I think you might be relying on tearing Excadrill or tearing Manaphy to keep the webs in the field because, again, you're staring at a token Haunter.
Yeah, there's going to be a ton of reliance on the combination of T-Tar, Excadrill, and then Gouging is going to have to put in a lot of work. There's just an over-reliance, I believe, on the Sand synergy here, but not enough pieces around it to kind of either help abuse it or facilitate it. I think you need more facilitators on this team in order to kind of bump it up into higher consideration, but as the team stands right now, Haunter being the only ghost is a very painful thing, especially if you're planning on using Galvantula primarily for webs, because not a whole lot of spinners are really going to respect Haunter. They probably have a lot of things that will help deal with it. So not really a good case for keeping webs up if that's your main goal of outspeeding a lot of things outside of Sandrush, Excadrill. I do like Grimmsnarl and Amoonguss as key pieces. In sand, Amoonguss can work a little bit. Grimmsnarl's hurt a little bit by it, though. Clef having Moonlight's health regeneration nerfed a little bit in sand doesn't help its cause. The Terras, I think, can be good. I think you're probably wanting to do Excadrill more times than not, so that I have nothing negative really to say about those. And then Latios being the fastest thing on this team, again, is a bit crippling, because if you run into like a team with a Weavile and sand is not up, this is a pretty scary situation for you. So not a whole lot of pieces that I can say that I'm too thrilled with, but I'm not. I wouldn't say that this is necessarily worst team worthy for me.
You know what? I'm a fan of Terra Excadrill. I think this team will surprise a couple of the trainers on the schedule. It starts off pretty rough for BAM. Sydney, Icirrus, Carvanha for like a starting 3 is like a brutal run. You'll see more as we go up the power rankings, but 3 really strong teams just to start it off. If we're gonna say how do you beat this team, it probably relies a lot on the Terra Excadrill and the sand to break through. It might week to week, it might depend on Grimmsnarl to set up screens. I'm assuming that a lot of weeks the gouging is going to be like a fat D-Dance set. So just being able to like prepare for those things, like bring a water type to try to wall the gouging. Being able to apply enough pressure to that Tyranitar so that it's only going to be able to set sand for maybe 2-3 cycles. Being able to force out the Excadrill is really nice. Again, this is another team that doesn't have great speed tiers. So if you bring like the right choice Scarfer, maybe you don't outspeed Excadrill, but you outspeed everything else.
Yeah, you basically just want to keep up pressure on this team. If you can dictate the pace, then you shouldn't really have too much to worry about this team if you're going up against it.
Yeah, not a lot of water resist either.
No.
If you tear the Manaphy out of it, we could talk about like what this team can change, but at the end of the day, this trainer has defined themselves as I have made a Sand Terra Excadrill team, and kind of how they move forward is going to be how do we support that.
Yeah, we'll have to see what the ceiling can be for it, but we'll put the floor right about here.
Soaring, I have a question.
Yeah.
There is a rogue mob boss named after a flightless bird on the loose.
Okay.
Because you know where we're going? We're going to Gotham.
Gotham City. And you know what Gotham has that y'all should respect more is Terra Regidrago. That's all I'll say. That's
in my notes. In my notes, I said Soaring has this team number 1 because of Terra Regidrago. Unfortunately, I think Kowtow and I agreed that we had this quite a bit lower. We have kind of this bottom tier where we have Norwalk, we have Adelaide, and we have Gotham, as well as another one coming up, where they're kind of all in the same clump where they have these core issues. I think Iron Boulder without Terra, I'm not really a believer. There are some situations where just the raw rock without the Terra is decent, but I think Boulder is like you bring it in once when it's really fast, and then it's like, okay. But it's really lacking on breaking power. You'd really want Superior to have Terra. Iron Moth is a good Terra captain, but like if your opponent has like the right pieces to either force it out on the booster or to wall the Fire Dance Sludge Wave combo just a little bit, then I think this team is really going to struggle. you're going to get some bad opinions from me over the course of this video. One of the ones that I'll stand behind is I am a Rotom washed believer. I do not think that this is a good bulky water. I've used it before for a season, and it just slowly died because it doesn't have great recovery. I am a fan of Iron Jugulis. I think this mon is underexplored overall, and especially in the PBO. So I'm looking forward to seeing how a number of the teams across the divisions are going to use it. I like Florges, I like Metagross, I like Great Tusk. There are a lot of things here that want Terra, and the bulky water that's going to help out the ground, the fighting. I'm sorry, the ground, the fire, the rock. It's not a great bulky water.
Yeah, when I look at this team, it's a very much a decent mix of fat and fast. There are pretty good pieces on both sides of those ends. Some points that you made that I pretty well agree with. The Serp, I think, should be getting Terra. Boulder should absolutely be getting Terra. Metagross is pretty good. Reggie kind of needs it. You have basically 5 or 6 mons that all need Terra, and they're all on the same team. And you can only do... We put 3 Terra captains this season, which is the most that we've done, but even then, it's not enough for the mons that you've picked to really shine to their fullest potential. Thus, you're not getting quite as much synergy as what you could be capable of getting. There are nice pieces. I'm not so much on the Rotom Washed train. I don't think it's the best thing in the world, but I do like the utility pieces that it still brings. The typing itself is good. It's about as good of a flying resist as you can get in this Paldex meta. But I think that there's just not a whole lot of reliable pieces on here outside of Tusk. I'm a huge believer in Tusk. Moth provides that offensive side that Tusk can't provide. It provides that special attacking side. The Boulder without Terra, don't really think you're going to be utilizing that to its fullest capability, but there's going to be a lot of struggles when it comes to deciding what the line is, how to fight your opponent's top guys, and you're just going to be struggling to find those calculations that you're just really going to be grasping for straws and maybe want to make some changes.
You know, when we're game planning for our own matches kind of through the week, we're trying to think through, okay, what is that line? How am I going to navigate this? One of the best ways to throw this team off is to set up in front of it. You put up a substitute. If you do like a bulk up, one of the strongest moves in Gen 9 is Encore, and this team does not have Encore. Not having an Encore mon is potentially game losing. And, you know, not even having the option to bring them on that can act as a disruptor. There are 4 Pokemon in the top 5 for this team that really rely on a lot of weeks for booster energy to really amp up the strength of the Moth, the Boulder, the Tusk, the Jugulis. So just a little bit of phasing, a plan for Iron Moth, and recognizing that this team doesn't have a lot of ways to stop you from setting up. I think those are going to be the keys to taking down Gotham week to week. Now, Soaring, let me ask you, your favorite drink. If you had to rank them all, what's at the top of the list for you? Because if I have to guess, it's going to be the Long Island iced tea. The Long Island Tyranitars
not close.
are our
It's
next
just getting
team.
further away.
Am I? Let's take a 2-minute break. We're going to talk about Soaring's favorite drinks. If you were in a bar, what would you ask the bartender to make?
I have no idea.
God, you're failing the bit, Soaring. We talked about this.
Okay, I didn't know it was that type of drink. Okay, I guess you said Long Island iced tea, so I guess that's fair. Anyway, Greninja, Terra Greninja, the demon.
Are you a fan of the Terra Greninja, Grant? Sorry?
Terra Greninja Gren.
Terra Greninja Gren. I'm sorry. The words they strung together.
This is Toku to the Ursasmon. Anytime you see a Terra Gren, you go, that's Kuma. And yeah, when I think of Terra Gren, I think of Kuma. And all I know is that Mon is always good. It's never been bad, actually. Same for Raging Bolt. Never been bad. Terathundi, never been bad. Heatran, never been bad. There's a lot of never been bad mons, but you have 1 point Samurai. That's pretty cool. Bulky Water type. Cheap. A Steel. You always get one.
Yeah, I think that's how Cowtown and I assess this team as well. If we were playing 8-man, where you could only draft 8 Pokemon, I think this team would be really solid. Bolt, Gren, Shaman, Heatran, Urshifu, Thundi. That's pretty solid. Again, for us, it's the fundamentals. Do we like Mimikyu as your only ghost or fairy? Do we like Toedscruel as your hazard clear? Do we like Samurott as your bulky water, understanding that Gren is there? Do we like Galarian Slowbro as your poison? Not really. I like Terra de Dunsparce as a glue piece, but when are you going to Terra it? You have a Terra Greninja. It's such a good Terra captain. Terra Thundurus, yeah, it's really strong. It might come in handy for the right matchup, but if you're going to bring an Electric, you might as well bring the Bolt. If you're going to Terrastallize something, you might as well Terrastallize the Gren. There are a lot of good things with this team. The power that you're going to get from like a booster special attack, Calm Mind, Raging Bolt is going to be awesome. I would actually love like Scarf Heatran on this team. You could put down some interesting like Mimikyu sets maybe. Scarf Urshifu Single Strike was a demon for a lot of teams last year, but it's just kind of similar to one of the earlier teams that we talked about. Set down hazards against this team and have a plan to just disrupt the Greninja Battle Bond cycle, or force out the Raging Bolt once, and that's how you're going to take on this team. Kowtow, what do you think? You're going to be the one playing this team potentially out in playoff. Oh, actually, week 1. I forgot. This is your week 1 team.
This is the week 1. I'm going to talk about a little bit of the that we mentioned the 8-mon syndrome going on. I think you have a team that you can kind of modify a little bit, going week in and week out with some 2 or 3 little pieces here and there that can kind of fit into some niche roles. But beyond that, a lot of what's here is just kind of building on some redundancy for me. The Samurott, you may be able to use that as a semi-bulky water, but you don't have any recovery that comes with it. The Thundurus Therian, I'm just not a huge fan of the Terra Thundurus on this team because of your round 1 and 2 picks. Between Bolt and Gren, they kind of fill any and all of the roles that Thundurus wants to do, other than just spamming like terrifying Terra Blast, which is something that Gren can do effectively week in, week out. And then the Dunsparce kind of falls into that same capacity there. You have Calm Mind sets, you might have a Curse set, just all stuff that Gren kind of wants to do once it gets that Battle Bond is end games. So why not just kind of help it out? I think the Urshifu single is a pretty good fit in with this team. Have that mid-game breaker, just spam Choice Band, Wicked Blows all over the place. You're looking really good with that, but the Glowbro, the Samurott, the Dun probably the best thing I can see it doing, other than using your Calm Mindset, is providing rocks in a game, providing you a ghost immunity, and that's kind of what it should be there for. But the top 8 are really going to be more so telegraphed by the end of the season. So I think this team will be able to start off strong, but it's going to get tougher and tougher as the weeks go on.
Not a lot of fighting resists.
No, you're running on thin ice on a lot of types, and the mons that resist them, like your fairy types. If Heatran goes down, then you're basically stuck in the mud when it comes to taking some Moonblast. Your close combats, if Mimikyu's out of the picture, then you're pretty much eating those close combats to the face. A lot of very you're hanging by a string here. You're hanging by a thread when it comes to your important defensive checks.
Yeah, sometimes we talk about teams and there's like one defensive mon that kind of holds a team together like with a shoestring and like glue. I think Ravens team last year with like the Tinkaton might have been a good example where the Tinkaton just provided a lot of needed immunities that made it harder to prep for. I don't see this team as especially difficult to prep for, and kind of like the last one, it does not have an Encore or a Taunt Mon. I believe it doesn't have a Taunt Mon, but I know it does not have an Encore.
This has
Mon.
a ton of Taunt Mons. I mean,
does it?
Maybe 3/4 of the team.
Gren, Urshifu. It doesn't have Encore. I'm pretty confident in it not being Encore.
Heatran, yeah. There are a lot of things that get Taunt, but not a lot of things that necessarily want to run Taunt week in and week out. And I believe Ham actually gets Encore. Or not Ham, Samurott.
All right, but it's the 1-point Mon. Is Samurott the real Mon?
We got to put some respect on that name. If there's one pointer that we're going to put some respect on, it's going to be Samurott.
All right, I'm not
face.
a believer here. Yeah, the shoestring Mon might have to be the Dunsparce, but not clear Encore user on this team. So if you're trying to take it down, just having a plan to make sure that Gren doesn't run away with it, having a ground type to deny Raging Bolt and Thundurus, maybe even having like a Ground Terra, and then if you can find a good setup opportunity, that's going to be your solution to taking down Long Island. So again, those past 4 teams, Norwalk, Adelaide, Gotham, and Long Island, we kind of had in our bottom tier. They're all kind of clumped together. You could, convince us to switch them any which way, and we'll check back in to see how they're doing when we get to the 3-week mark or so of the season. Now we're getting into what we're calling our tier 3. These would be the teams that we think will be contending for playoffs. Once we get to week 5 or 6, we think they're going to be scrapping it out. Soaring, what is your favorite kind of bug? Because for me, it's the Scizor. So we've got the Pittsburgh Scizors.
Second Scizor team on here.
The second Scizor team. This team... There are a lot of things to like about this team. This team feels very Jarv-pilled. The Terra Annihilate, Kyurem is a beast. Primarina is like one of my favorite like archetypes of a Mon. It's like you can make it kind of fat, give it like a Calm Mind or Draining Kiss, or give it Choice Specs, and it can just nuke you with like a Moonblast. Gliscor is great. I love Terra Hoopa Unbound. Leo ran that to great success in Neon last season. We got a Weather team, which, I'm a fan of. Fortress, it does its job. Rotom Heat provides some nice additional typing, as well as Alolan Muck on this team. It checks a lot of the type boxes, despite being a little bit unorthodox. And you even have the webs in there, which pair really well with the Annihilate. If you've got a team that relies on like a Defogger, the Annihilate's going to get that Defiant boost. Like, it is just... There are a ton of ways for this team to win week to week. That being said, the fastest Mon on here is Alolan Ninetales at like 109. Like, this is by far the slowest team in the format. It really needs those webs, I think, in more matchups than not. And that might, cause us some trouble. Kyurem's going to want to Dragon Dance or the Scale Shot. You kind of know what this team's going to do. It's going to set Veil, and then it's going to try to go, or set webs and try to go to a sweeper to try to set up, so that they can push through kind of the, I'll say the stats or the type deficiencies. Gotcha.
Yeah. I have a very love-hate relationship with this team. Ape was my guy last season. It was one of my favorite things to use. This team has got some of the fattest pieces that you can have, and that work really well together, actually. Gliscor providing a bunch of hazards for Kyurem, Ape, Prim, even Hoopa to pick off in that end game. You have a lot of strong top half pieces there, and it's all being held together by the cheapest Elmer's glue that you could possibly ask for. You have Webs from Masquerain, Fortress as your spinner, Rotom Heat. I respect the Alolan Muck. I think that's a good Mon to bring, but historically we just haven't seen Alolan Ninetales teams, specifically paired with a snow abuser like Hiram, like insert Slush Rushmon here. We just haven't seen success from those teams. Maybe that will change this season. But because this is a kind of a different archetype that we've seen, it's not so much focused on speed, and it's just focused on take hits and just hit back harder. And we just haven't seen that work yet. So hopefully we can see some good matches from that. I like the Terra Hoopa. I think that's a really fun one to use. I don't think we'll get to see Terra Meloetta that often, but I do think that's another one with potential. But your back end pieces just don't really do it for me. I think that they're just a little too niche in what they do, a little bit too exploitable, and I don't see a ton of expressive potential from this team. So I would like to see this team succeed, but my upside on it is just not that much. I do think that the thickness of it, the fatness, will carry it to at least contend, and hopefully we'll get to see some fun matches from those, especially with Ape.
Yeah, I'm way higher on the upside of this team than I think Kowtow is. I could see this team going 6-2, quite frankly. I really like a lot of the back end pieces. I won, a speed tour running double ice, double fairy, in a team very similar to this. I think I had a Tinkaton instead of Primarina. It's not especially fast, and you're looking at pivot from Rotom Heat. I think Terra Rock, Terra Blast would be very good into this team. You have really no reason not to Terra Annihilate or Hoopa week to week. I don't have a Terra Annihilate on my team because its typing is so good. So I didn't even mention the Meloetta because it's like, well, what would be a scenario where you don't want to use Terra on the Hoopa or on the Ape? I really like this team, and everything that I know about speed tiers tells me that I shouldn't, but I really hope to see this team do well. If you're trying to beat it, denying the Veil or only giving the Alolan Ninetales a few times to bring it in, being able to deny the setup from the Kyurem or the Primarina, we kind of have an idea of how this team is going to want to win. Just going in with a game plan to try to deny those setup threats or to limit the amount of time that they're going to be able to sit on the field. All right, Soaring. I'm desperately trying to think of a pun for our next team.
Good luck.
It is the Glasgow Glowbros, a team name that I will struggle to pronounce the entire season. Glasgow. I am weather-pilled, and this team really makes me kind of question myself. Is this a snow team? It's probably not the most pressing question that you should have when looking at a team if, Slowking, Mamoswine, and Alolan Sandslash qualify, but that was the first place that my mind went to. I can see the outline of a win condition for this team. You have Meowscarada as like a revenge killer, or something that can be like a fast pivot. Chi-Yu, either give it like a choice specs or a choice scarf, just something to give it like another oomph, and you've got Terra on top of it, and it can just nuke teams. I love Goldengo. Mamoswine can hit like a truck. There are a lot of good pieces on this team, but I don't know if it has enough tricks in the bag, and it's going to really depend on how innovative Ty can be with things like the Screamtail. We have seen other players like Mug just run a Screamtail to perfection and dominate teams in a week where maybe you wouldn't be expecting it. I'm not too high on having two Psychic types as your glue pieces, because it does expose you to, like, okay, you're going to see Terra Ghost, Terra Blast, or Terra Ghost Shadow Ball every single week just take chunks out of this team. I know Chi-Yu and Meowscarada provide a Ghost Resist as a Dark type, but they're not especially bulky. If like these things might get 3-shot by Shadow Ball or by Ghost Shadow Blast. Alolan Sandslash is your only spinner. That scares me. I do like Conk with the Defog, It's another team that I feel like you can disrupt with a fast Encore or a fast Tauntmon. I do think that this will be on the borderline between, like, oh, is this like a team or is this team like fighting for playoffs? It's just really going to be a question about Ty. And I don't know Ty. I don't know a lot of these coaches before. I haven't seen them play before, or I don't kind of recall. That's one of the things I'm excited for going into the season. But this very much reads like if the person steering it is steering it really well and really confident in their team, then this team is going to be a bear to handle.
Yeah, you mentioned being a team that if it's piloted really well, this can be pretty much sky's the limit. This is a team that I have a lot of optimism for. I think comparing this to the previous team in Pittsburgh, you're looking at that's a very obvious snow team. This one, you see Slowking there, you see Mamoswine, you see Sandslash, and yet I don't see this being a weather team, at least obviously. I think that this is perfectly fine operating outside of, okay, let's set up snow and let's let Slush Rush, let's let Ice type get defense boost, and let's let that carry. You have plenty of pieces that work together to wear down your defensive checks equally well. I think this team is very much a stop-and-go kind of momentum team. You have a decent chunk of your offensive pieces can get walled by certain types. Bulky Waters and Steels in particular can do well, but you have the type variety offensively to pivot into them. You have the disruption pieces. You have Encore on not only Screamtail, but there's also Grafai there that can come in some odd weeks. There's a lot of Thunderwave span possible. Your hazard control is not great, but it is there. So I think you have that kind of checked off there. Your Stealth Rocks, you can run them on Mamo or Screamtail. I think there are a lot of check marks crossed off, but the pieces themselves, they may look a little underpowered, but I think they work really well together, and that's what some of the best teams are when they're piloted by somebody who knows how to utilize them. So I see this as being a very high ceiling team, but we'll have to see where that they take it before we can place it any higher than this, in my opinion.
I think if you're playing Glasgow between weeks like 3 and 8, you really got to go back and see how they play week 1 and 2, because this team could be played in a whole bunch of different ways, and you really need to get the download on this, or else it might surprise you. I think what it's hunting for is just getting all of the Mons on your team into Chi-Yu or Meowscarada range, and it has the ability to keep hazards off, or keep hazards on the other side with Goldengo really well. Would be surprised to see a Scarf Mamo sweep through 3 or 4 Mons in a given week. I think chipping down the Goldengo is really important on the defensive profile for this team. Goldengo is doing a lot for them. I wouldn't be shocked if it runs like bulky Goldengo with T-Wave and Colberberry a lot. So if your like primary game plan on how to take out the Goldengo is like knockoff, you're going to be in some trouble. You got to bring multiple ways to go at this thing. Earthquake is great. We haven't talked about the Terra Kilowattrel. That's pretty nice. You don't really need to Terra it. It's there. But the synergy between Kilowattrel and Goldengo, it's another thing that's like really nice. You go for the Earthquake and the Goldengo, switch into the Boots Kilowattrel, Wattrel dodges it, and then it can get a fast Volt Switch the next turn. Like, being able to have different options to not only chip the Goldengo, but not get forced out, and then just get stuck in this rotation where Meowscarada comes in or Chi-Yu comes in, and you're like, oh shoot. I think this is one of those teams that, like Kowtow said, it could be all the way up in the top 4, or we could see this kind of struggling for contention. I wouldn't be surprised if we get to like week 4 or week 5 and we're like, this is like a must-win week for Ty. All right. I know you're really excited for this one, Soaring. Who is your favorite Scott?
The Erie Oshawotts.
Is Erie Scottish? Is their name Scott? I don't know where you're going
No,
with
I'm
this.
kidding.
I have the Scottish Stoutlands next.
Oh, there's so many S teams. Holy crap. Okay, this one. We're good.
I said Scott, and I was really hoping that you'd start to think through your brain. You'd shout out like Scott Pilgrim. Like, no, the country, Scotland. So this is Lyric's team, Scottish Stoutlands. You know Lyrics better than I do, Kowtow. If you want to lead off with this one.
Yeah. So I see a lot of very valuable pieces on a team when you're looking at your lead off with Darkrai and Iron Hands. Very solid pieces. Cinderace provides a lot of solid momentum gain. Weezing's a very Weezing, Empoleon, Sinistra, Latias, all very solid defensive roles in utility. Croak offers very solid offensive pressure, and Garg, the move Sulk here, very solid. And then there's Zebstrika. So I go through all these Pokemon, and I have a very common theme going on here. I think these are all very solid. I don't know if they are anything more than that, though. I think that this is about as middle of the pack as I could think a team to be, in my opinion. I think you can pilot this to be make them the sum. What's the Jarv? What's the saying?
Greater than the whole. Some greater
Some
than the
make the
individual
sum
parts.
greater. Yeah, all that sweet jazz. Anyway, I think that this team has potential for that, and I very much hope that it does happen. But looking at the team itself, I just don't. I am mildly whelmed by the selection of team here. There's nothing that stands out as this is scary. I'm going to start prepping against this thing immediately, and I'm not going to stop until I have a solution to this and a backup plan and a backup to that backup plan. There's just nothing here that screams that to me. Unless you want to talk about Hypnosis Darkrai, but we're not ready to have that discussion yet. But
No, I think if Darkrai can punch holes in the other team, then this can really rock. Maybe put up, Latias is an interesting mon. I've been looking at it for my team actually. If Latias can set screens, go to Darkrai gets like a nasty plot off with like a life orb and just starts chunking the other team. You feel good about Iron Hands pushing the rest of the way through. Sometimes you get a Terra Captain that can just be like, okay, I click one button, one setup move, and it's a GG. Like I was doing some prep against Philly, and Philly brought Terra Water, Garg, and one curse, and I lost. I think Sinistra can definitely be that. I'm not so much a believer of Iron Hands. I guess, it can for some situations, but the biggest thing that jumped out to me was how slow Iron Hands and Sinistra are as your Terra Captains. Like Kowtow said, love G Weezing, love Empoleon, love Latias, love Crocodile. It's the slowness of the hands and the Sinistra that really get it for me. I would have loved, I'm such a Garg pilled. I would have loved having Terra Garg on here. But again, it's the same archetype. You're trying to sweep through with this slow Terra Captain. You're trying to find like the right Terra typing to, you hit one like setup button and you win. Will this team be top 5? It could be. Could this team be bottom 5? I don't think so. Whereas several of the other teams that we've passed, we've said, well, it could be all the way up here, but we kind of think it's going to be more down here. I think this is going to be a very solid team. Might even be like the gatekeeper team, if you will, for the rest of the division. I fully expect Lyrics to get into playoffs. Will Lyrics, be at the top of the playoffs? Probably not. Week 1 against Aiden is not a friendly matchup. Week 4 against Kowtow is not a walk in the park, and then final week Sydney is, if you have to go and play Sydney in a win or go home style, that's not very fun. So I would say the Lyrics kind of, as you go up against some of these teams that are in the same tier, in the same clump as you, like Glasgow, I think those are your must wins, and just make sure to put the work in before you get down to like a 1-3 or a 2-3, because with the schedule that you have, it hasn't done you many favors. We can blame Soaring for rigging that one.
Well, that's
You
my
have any
favorite
proof?
roller coaster.
My biggest issues with this team, maybe it's missing a wall breaker. It feels like the wall breaking has to be done by Darkrai, but it could very easily be done by Cinderace. It's just there are a lot of matchups where you're going to want Cinderace to be more of a support. This team like hates Encore, Disable, Taunt, Roar, Whirlwind, because it does take the Terra Captains a few turns of setup to really get going. Just like I would love to have Terragarg on here. I think Terragarg is such a good mon, and it's like, how often are you gonna bring just like raw Garg? I don't know. But there's so many good like defensive mons on this team that if you're trying to go into it, there's not like one typing that is like ridiculously strong into this. You're gonna have to bring like a lot of different options. Maybe like, do I need to go for a mid-ground option here to get like the right amount of chip on a mon? This is not going to be an easy team to go against, but I think bringing that disruption, bringing a plan to shut down those slow Terra Captains is going to be your way to go. Any final words, Cowtown?
No, but I do. You mentioned that this is the Gatekeeper team. That is my favorite roller coaster.
Again, I'm trying to think of a good pun for this next team for Soaring. Soaring, I have nothing. I don't think I could ask Soaring anything about Lake Erie, and Soaring would be able to give me any like coherence of a response. The next team we have is the Erie Oshawotts. In my notes, I have all caps 4 question marks. Are you an Alamomola believer? I really like this team. I'm not like, oh, Alamomola is the best, but I am an Alamomola believer. I think it pairs really well with like Terrapagos. I think one of the things that we tend to see with like Landorus Therians this gen is it slowly dies. It's responsible for taking a whole bunch of hits, and like, yes, it has Intim and it's great for that, and you can make it like max HP, max special defense, but yeah, if you're able to Wish Pass back over to it, oh my god, that's even better. Same thing for Uxie. I expect Lando or Urshifu to Terra Fairy a lot. Maybe not Terra Fairy the Urshifu as much for defensive purposes, but Terra Water for the offensive purposes. Give you like the Terra Fairy, Terra Blast, because you don't really want to be bringing Comfey as your primary fairy. Toxtricity as your poison. Like, I get roles where you're gonna bring it, but I feel like it's just gonna make the line more convoluted. So putting down T-Spikes in this team is probably going to be successful for you in a lot of weeks. Obviously, it has one of the best spinners in the format in Terrapagos, so that's really nice. And there are a lot of like ground resist, but being able to get like a little bit of chip on that Alamomola, being able to put a timer on the Urshifu, being able to break the Sturdy and put a timer on the Orgerpon, like there are ways to chip and to beat this team pretty cheaply. I expect like the same 7 mons to come. I expect it to be like the top 6 and like Orgerpon Cornerstone the vast majority of the time, which I do expect for a lot of the teams. But just to contrast what we saw from Lyrics, like you're really relying on your top 7. If this was 8 mon, I think you'd be golden. You're like, fine, whatever, you just tear the fairy. But I'd be hoping for more from my fairy and my poison, just in terms of reliability. Anything I missed on that, Kowtow?
No, I think you get hit the nail on the head quite well there. The top half team syndrome going on here. This compared to the previous one that we discussed, I believe that was that Long Island. But regardless, comparing this to that team, I think this team just provides much more offensive pressure. The defensive pieces are much better, and it's just going to be much tougher to break through this team. With Lando providing those intimidates at Aloe. Some people, I won't name names, some people are Wish haters, but I'll move on from that and we'll talk about the Terras. We're going to be talking about Rapid and Lando. Two that don't necessarily need Terra, but Rapid really benefits from it. You can have some funky sets with Lando T, with Terra specifically. The only thing with Toxtricity being a Terra captain, yes, it does receive a good amount of value from it. Yes, you can make it work, but in all, in the grand scheme of this season, I don't think it will be quite as valuable as putting Terra on the top two guys that you have. So I do agree that Comfey could use that Terra, and I think that the overall structure of the team does fit really well. Having Yuxi to set rocks, you can set screens with it. You have Encore on quite a few of your guys, actually, between Tox, Yuxi, and Orgerpon. You have a really good lead, speaking of Orgerpon, being able to set spikes. You have a good rock stab, which I really, really like in this generation. And then your speed being 119 with Roaring Moon, who typically wants to run Dragon Dance. Don't really see a whole lot of top-end speed, but I wouldn't necessarily call this a slow team either. Just a lot of good pieces that kind of elevate this to being something I'd consider one of our playoff contenders once the season starts winding down.
Yeah, I think you'd expect to see Choice Scarf, Terra, Urshifu a lot of weeks. But there's opportunity for Klecker to surprise opponents. Maybe you bring like a Trailblaze set instead. This team feels like it's going to be a real knowledge check on its opponents. Like, do you know how to stop Moon or Urshifu from snowballing? I think the way to target this team is, again, put down like a spike or a T-spike, and when Aloe comes to try to bail the team out with Wish or with some Tempo Pass, there are ways to disrupt it. Kind of similar with Uxie, actually. Like, Uxie gets Encore, it gets U-turn, it gets knockoff, a lot of like utility pieces, but you usually don't see an Uxie that will like force you out. So there are opportunities against this team to set up. You just need to make sure that you don't allow the sweeper threats to roll you over. And again, this was our tier 3. This is our kind of, typically like fighting for playoff contention or just inside of playoffs. We're going into our last team in tier 3. Soaring, what can you tell me about Karl Anthony Towns?
Who's the other player he plays with? Who's the other player, like the big player? Is it Brunson? Who is it?
That is Brunson.
So they should have a nickname. Do they call him Cat Dog in New York? They should call him Cat Dog in New York because Brunson got that dog in him, and cat's cat, so they call him Cat Dog. That's what I call him, at least.
Genius.
You know what? I'm going on Twitter right now, and I'm tweeting at Karl Anthony Towns, at Jalen Brunson. Can your nicknames be Cat Dog?
I think that works really well.
I ask because we are on to the New York Nickits as our 16? Our number 16?
Yes.
So again, another team that we would expect to be into the playoffs. Oh man, I really like this team. Corviknight Glowking as your defensive backbone is like a bear. And, we've talked about how a number of the previous teams have had underwhelming fairies. This has Terra Fairy Sylveon. Like, what a beast of a mon. So excited. Like, there's so many sets that you can run with Sylveon. You can have like a choice spec set. You can have like an AV with like a quick attack and pixelate, so it becomes like stab fairy priority. You can have like a Calm Mind. You can have Wish Pass. It doesn't need Terra. It just gives it like a little bit extra oomph. This team spent a lot of points on Ceruledge for Terra. Obviously, it's very difficult to get a good Ghost after the initial top 4. Having Terra Ceruledge, but you don't need to like bring or Terra it every week, I think that's fantastic. I think G Zapdos is going to have a really good season. I think a lot of good players have drafted it across the divisions. Some with Terra, some without. Having like a choice scarf like Brave Bird is going to be awesome. Obviously, like G King backs, we saw that win. How many times did that won PBO? Is it 3 times now, Soaring?
It's got to be up there with 2 or 3 at least.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just in my room. It is, I think, twice. I think Bax is
at least twice.
Too. At least twice.
Yeah.
I'll
Ogerpon,
double check
I
while
dropped
you're talking.
Sounds good. I dropped Ogerpon Wellspring last season when it took over for Sydney's team. I regretted it immediately. That thing's awesome. Again, we've talked about teams with like mediocre, bulky waters. Orgerpon is not that, right? It's not like, bulky in terms of, huge HP stat, but it can tank a hit, and then it gets it back with Synthesis or Horn Leech. Arboliva's kind of like whatever on this team. I am like a big-time Donphan hater because I think a lot of teams draft it because they need a ground type, they need a spinner, it gives them some nice roll compression, but it just like, it gets set up on it. The defensive profile when Donphan's in falls apart. That is not the case for this team. This is probably like the team that I have liked the most that has had Donphan on it. And then just to top it all off, we're talking about speed tiers. You've got Terra Jolteon, if you want it, or if there's like a good matchup for it. This is going to be like a good team.
Yeah, I agree. This is where we already mentioned that we've crossed over into what we're considering our tier 2. This is probably going to be what we expect to be these playoff contenders. We're expecting them to get these well-earned wins and have some mons up at the top of the kill leaderboard, and that's probably what we're going to see from the likes of Bex, Wellspring, Ceruledge, Gyarados, maybe even Sylveon can contend up there. Maybe Jolteon can jump up there. But you have a really, really good combination of defensive pieces in Corv and Glowking, like mentioned. Really good pivoting defensive pieces to bring in some of your not so bulky, your frailer options like your Ceruledge, your Jolteon, backs to an extent, but a lot of the team just works really well together. And the Arbo can come in and you can have that terrain up to reduce those earthquake damages on your team. You have a really good, you don't really fear ground types quite frankly at all. You don't really have anybody that either can't shed their typing to remove their ground weakness, or who just doesn't really care, or you can't just call it a day by throwing a Shuka Berry on there. And then you don't really have any kind of problems with fairies. The only complaint I could have with this team is it's quite weak to ghost. Ghost spam, especially if you're going up like against a Dragapult. This is probably as easy of a Choice Specs Shadow Ball week as you could possibly get. Maybe you tear us into something to deal with that, but that would be coming down the line there. But that's just some nitpick that I have. But we're really getting into the teams where we have to nitpick to find the flaws, what we can kind of dissect if we are going up against it. How do we beat it? We're getting into those teams where they already have all the good pieces that they need to contend. How do you break them apart and how do you dissect them is the question. And I think that this is kind of that the baseline of those that level of team here.
Yeah. Like, if there was a Mon who'd be really good playing into this team, this team doesn't have great fire resistances except for Ceruledge and ghost resistances. I'd probably say Ceruledge looks really good into this team, but it's already on there. Choice Scarf Shadow Ball from like a Gengar or like a Goldengo. There are totally Mons that will find that they have ways to really crack this team open. Goldengo, for example, being able to hit G-King as well as put a T-Bolt onto Corv. If you could do something to really disrupt those two, so maybe like you trick a Choice Scarf onto the Glowking or the Corviknight, that really like hurts this team. You do have Donphan and you do have Defog on Corv, but you don't really want to be like stuck in a cycle here, Caleb, where you have to rapid spin or you have to defog. So if you're the opponent playing into them, just being able to put down like a stealth rock to deter the Baxcalibur from coming in, and then just daring them, bring in the G-King for defensive purposes, bring in the Corviknight, bring in the Donphan, and capitalizing on what you could expect is like the most predicted turns kind of to come.
Yeah. The best thing that this team has going for it is Spectre is not in this metagame.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it has going for it. Spectre is not available. But yeah, solid team overall. Really getting into the heavy hitters.
This team would be so fun to play with. really excited to see what Caleb brings forward for the rest of the season.
I have 2 updates. So Bax has won it 4 seasons. 4 seasons.
Pretty good.
And Glow King has won 3, if my numbers are correct.
Yeah,
So
just
2 proven
Royal
winners.
history here.
Pretty good
Royal
together.
all reliable snow.
A question from both of you. It's just yes or no. We can move on. Does Glow King and Bax make a snow team?
No.
You know where I sit on this. I say absolutely.
All right, moving on.
This goes into our tier 2. So these would be the teams kind of contending for the title at the end, as we expect. You could talk me into that for this team. Maybe a little bit too defensive, or maybe a little bit too predictable. But we'll talk and we'll reevaluate as the season goes on. Soaring, this team is named after your favorite piranha. This is the Carvanha Dealership, with Woke Walter, with Walt. This is I don't want to say like an awkward team. I'll say like unorthodox. Like you typically would expect like your ground type to do Donphan things, right? It has some roll compression. It sets rocks. You would expect your bulky water to be able to flip turn and pivot. And this team does not have those things, and I love it. Oh, I love this team so much. You just have this nuke and Bloodmoon that I love. I don't like Araquanid as like a solo bulky water on a team because like, at least in the way that I imagine it, because it's so weak to rocks, you like bring it in as like your lead. You're able to set webs. Maybe you're able to like disrupt like a special setup mon. But I love it on this team because of all the things that all the rest of the team does. This is hyper offense. You have like the Glamora, and then you have like the Dio, so you put down like a ton of hazards or like screens. I can't wait to see Walt like run this as like an offensive Glamora. Dragonite, you're seeing a lot of creativity on the global tour, Smogon tours with D-Knight, with like these fat D-Knight sets that just spread T-Wave. I had Orgerpon Hearthflame last season. I had some issues with it because I would use it like mid-game, and it would just take so much damage from hazards. But you can just lead Okidogi Hearthflame because it's like your 4th or 5th most threatening offensive mon. Terra Raiku's great. This doesn't have a great fairy. I think if I'm thinking of like a budget fairy, Granbull would have been my one to go because it has Intim. But Doxpin might find like a Wish Pass. But I expect Terra Raikou to be kind of like a go-to fairy or go-to ghost for this team. And then you cap it all off, and you have to deal with the 7-point Terra Captain, King Gambit, at the end, who might just sweep through the rest of the team. Like, this team is quite unorthodox in its team structure, quite, like, non-traditional, but man, is this not lacking in offensive options.
Yeah, offensive options out the wazoo. This kind of, I feel like you throw darts at a dartboard, and you're trying to paint a picture, and somehow you end up with something that goes into a museum, and you end up making $5 billion on royalties. I feel like there's so many random pieces here, and initially you don't really look at it and see a good team, but the more you start looking at it, the more you just think this is the prototypical lead, something that sets hazards, leads something that breaks a few things, and then you bring in some mid-game guys that set up and do some stuff. And then you just bring in your Terra King Gambit, you bring in your Bloodmoon, your D-Knight, and you just clean up the whole rest of the game. This is the prototypical hyper offense team. I don't think it can get much more scarier than this when it comes to finding all these weird pieces and somehow making it work. It weirdly works for me. The only thing is there are a lot of things that are going to be wanting to run boots on this team. I don't think that's a bad thing. Boots, D-Knight, you see that all the time. Hearthflame, you kind of just have to eat it. Like you mentioned, being able to lead that, you can even run spikes on it to throw some people off. But I do agree that this is one of the harder teams to face in battle. It may look weird on paper, but in the heat of the moment, this is going to be a very tough challenge to overcome.
And, we talked about how the final picks were kind of throwaways for a lot of teams. Like the last team, it had like the Arbaliva. which would really like Terra. It's like, okay, like when are you going to use the Arbaleaver? It's so situational. It's so weak to so many different moves. I love Thwacky on this team. Like Thwacky, Terrain Extender Thwacky, bring it in and just gives the Ursaluna Bloodmoon just a little bit more recovery. Or you bring it in and now Orgerpon Hearthflame has Grassy Glide priority after like an SD. Like, whoa. I really like how Walt has built this team. Biggest issues, biggest ways to attack it. You don't really have hazard removal. You have Glamora, but unlike all the other kind of spinners, you block Mortal Spin with Steel. So whereas a lot of teams I think struggle with like a mid-tier ghost type that can function well in that role, you don't need that when you play Walt here. So for example, the Gudra team, the Hisuian Gudra team, where Gudra was the only Steel, I think typically we'd be like, nah, that's pretty like whatever. I think that Gudra has a great matchup into this team. Like an Iron Defense Gudra just blocks all hazard clear. Like, some teams will have really good matchups into this. It's I have a few things to complain about, but all in all, this is just a tough team to deal with. Terra flying might be okay because of the Hearthflame and the Araquanid, but then you have like a number of really good resistances like the Steel Gambit or like the Glamora and the Raikou. Like I would just caution Walt to don't become predictable. Keep switching it up. Keep utilizing the breadth of the options on some of the mons like Deoxys. If you're playing into this team, go back and watch the footage, see how Walt plays, because I think that's going to be one of the biggest indicators for how you should win.
Yeah, you're going to it's going to be very setup reliant. It's going to be very mid game type of team. But just for me, props for finding pieces that will make it work. Just gonna need to ensure that your speed is under control, because that seems to be one of my only complaints here.
This team has passion. I like that. I like that in my teams. Soren, question for you. You send a trophy out to all of the teams that win in a given season, right?
I do. It's true.
When are you going to send a trophy to the editor? Because our next team is the Sydney Sylveons.
Oh, that's not him. That's him. Maybe this season. I don't know, man. That teams are pretty good.
What a beast of a team. Like, Iron Valiant Sneasler, I've played with the combo before. I was even toying with Fight Spam a little bit for my Sunset team. Terra Iron Crown is just a demon. Rillaboom, Shocks I like. Volcarona, I was going to draft Volcarona. I think Volcarona is insane for its price. I know you can't Terra it, but I still think there are a lot of good sets that you can use it, maybe like bulkier sets. If there's something that I don't like about this team, I don't like Wake. I think Bastiodon's like whatever. I want to see what Sydney does with Zoroark. I think that could be really interesting for the team. So like, is this Zoroark? Let me close combat it, and it's actually Sneasler or Iron Valiant. I think that could be like really strong. I am very like, you need a bulky water pilled in order to be able to cover like the different defensive typings. Having Walking Wake as your like support water is not great in my book. Having Iron Valiant as your fairy, as I am doing so this season, is more difficult. I think this team really would have liked like an Azumarill instead, but must not have been available. Drifblim as your ghost, you could find worse. It has some nice roll compression with Defog. You can do some stuff with like an Unburden set, like some Strength Sap. It's an interesting mon. How much will Sydney bring it? I don't know. It'll probably be matchup dependent. But there's no hazard removal besides this Drifblim, which I don't like. That being said, you have a lot of things that resist rocks anyway, and you've got a lot of things that can like sweep through. This will be a team that's like very difficult to prep for. Even like the Terra Grass Rillaboom is like interesting because I think you have a relative understanding of like how much damage Rillaboom is going to do, and then it comes out with like a choice band Grassy Glide in grassy terrain, and you're like, whoa, I was not expecting that. What do you think about this Kowtow?
Yeah, I think you have maybe one of the better, like, as far as pieces that work together and pieces that on their own are threatening in of themselves. This top 5 is one of the best that we've seen. The Sneasler Boom combo, as tried and true as we've all seen, even though I'm not a huge believer in it, but we've seen it on several teams. We know how dangerous it can be. Val, there's nothing that needs said about it. I'm a huge Crown supporter. I think that thing can do literally anything. Literally anything. Shocks. Shocks being here's where I start getting into the nitpicks. Shocks being the thing that sets your rocks, sets your spikes. It doesn't really allow you to perform the heavy offensive pressure that it really wants to do, especially on this team, because you have a nice ground move that isn't impacted by grassy terrain and can help soften up some of the checks that Val or Sneasler might run into, especially those poison types. It can't really fully invest in one side or the other, as far as you have 4 slots and you want to devote them all to kind of eliminating or softening up those checks for your end game for your top guys. So Shocks is really important to fulfilling that role, and some weeks it might just not be able to bring spikes. It might not be able to fit on rocks, and that's really the only thing that you have that can do that. So that's one thing that's kind of stretching it a little thin for me on calling this like a truly ride or die offensive team. And then you've already mentioned the Walking Wake. We don't need to go down there. The Volk we've seen. I think you'd want a secondary dark type behind this Zoroark, because I do like the offensive potential of it, but something that runs just ghost spam into this team can be pretty dangerous, because you don't really want to take those Shadow Balls. You don't really want to take those Poltergeists with your Zoroark. You really would just want to be spamming Knockoff, spamming Dark Pulse, all those things. So you don't really want to be taking those. Driftblim, I want to see what it can do, like you mentioned. I think there's potential for it, just haven't seen it yet. And then Bastiodon is your one-pointer. Nothing really to say about that. So I think we just need to see this this put to the test and put through some rigorous testing. But I think that there's enough here to put this team this high on the board and expect this to be one of the top end contenders going into the season.
Yeah, I think maybe like Iron Crown aside, this team could be really difficult to steer. Sneasler and Val have Taunt and have Encore, but like they're very frail, and I think we think of them as like these like monstrous like win conditions. So are you willing to risk the Encore on your like one of your sweepers when it could just like Encore into not a setup move? I don't know. I think this could be a little difficult. If you're trying to beat this team, just getting like a little bit of speed would be really nice. Like I think Quaquaval has a good matchup into this. I think like a weak armor Ceruledge has a good matchup into this. You have recovery with Rillaboom. You got strength sap with Driftblim, but nothing else has a Volcarona Morning Sun, but nothing else has recovery. I could totally see there being upset against Sydney, just simply because it was hard. It was a hard matchup. All right, we are down to our final 3 teams. We're still in Tier 2, still kind of what we expect to be the contenders. Spoiler alert for later in, but we only have one team as our Tier 1, who we believe to be the favorite. This next team is a bit problematic for us. We have had some HR issues in the PBO, some conflicts of interest. This next team is going to be the Columbus Conkeldurrs, our Kowtow. I'm not going to ask Kowtow to do a ton of analysis, a ton of self-analysis, because I know that they want to save a good amount of this for their opponents. What do I like about this team? You already made some moves, Kowtow. Was this legal? Was this
Yes, it's legal.
green lit?
Yes.
I don't know. I think there's some chicanery here.
Oh my goodness, not again.
I did some friendlies against Kowtow for this team before they made the swaps. I think Kowtow is continuing to kind of adjust and tweak. I see the Terra Orgerpon Teal there that screams like mug or metal. Terra Hydrapple is a monster. You swept me with the Terra Fenzandipiti. That was gross. Palafin obviously busted. Treads just does so much roll compression. I think Moltres is crazy good. I think Rotom is incredibly good for what it is. So many teams would... I think Rotom might be like the 6th best ghost in the format, which is crazy for where its points are at. I'm struggling with my Overquill at the moment, and I run like a rain team. So I'll be curious to see how you kind of march forward with that. And then the Weavile, if you can get it in without it kind of taking a ton of damage, then all power to you. This kind of hits like every typing. I don't know why you have the Tatsugiri, but you have it.
Giri's awesome.
Okay. All right, Soaring is Tatsugiri pilled. A bunch of my notes were on the mons that you dropped, and you and I have actually talked about this, where I think the Noivern was all right. You had it for like defog, but like when do you really want to bring it? Same with like the Hatterene, but obviously they're no longer around. Kowtow, any kind of words that you wanna give? I know that I said that I would primarily do this part.
Yeah, as far as the team structure goes, I don't think that there's much I can complain about. There's just going to be finding out what mons will be brought week in and week out, because you can't bring 10 mons to a game. You have to figure out what the best 6 is. So that's probably going to be the toughest part, to find the mons that kind of fill the roles that you need to go into the opponents. This team kind of presents those problems a little bit. You want to bring one mon, but another mon might do something better, or might do something different that might be a little bit more valuable, and then that leaves some stuff off the table. So I think that's going to be a good problem to have with me, but I don't think it'll be something that will hinder me quite a bit.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when you have Treads teams, they tend to be over-reliant on Treads to take on a lot of like the resistances, right? Because it is your only ground and it is your only steel, but you know, Hydrapple has like a ton of thickness and it's got Regenerator. Fenzandipiti is awesome, especially when it's especially defensively. Moltres, love Moltres. Obviously, it's going to be boots locked. This is going to be a tough team for anyone to deal with. You know, obviously, easier said than done, but yeah, if you can throw rocks down, if you can, find the chip where you can with the Weavile, with the Moltres, if you have like reliable knockoff users, the Palafin. You know, the biggest criticism that you can have of Palafin is that you got to find a turn to like switch it in, switch it out. You can punish it. There are probably going to be matchups where you want to Terra Orgerpon, but like there's the Terra Fairy Hydrapple in the back. You're like, well, is it worth it right now because the speed boost is really nice. This is there's not like a 1 weak point that I can point to for this. If you're prepping for Kowtow, all power to you. You're going to have your own like discrete matchup advantages that you're going to have to find. You got to do like a good amount of scouting to try to figure out what it is you're dealing with. You know, is this going to be a choice band Palafin? Is this going to be like a sub bulk up acro set? Is this going to be like an AV Hydrapple, or is it like choice specs? Just taking the time in the matchup to get an understanding of like, okay, what is it exactly that I'm dealing with? Because this team does have like a number of options, but doing the proper scouting is probably going to be your best approach. All right, Soaring, we're up to our number 2 team. This was actually, I believe, Snowpoint City is the northernmost location in the 4th gen Pokemon games. I think I have that right. It had the Regigigas in the basement. That all I remember. That is like the last Pokemon game I ever played. It is Snowpoint City next with Lavs. Another disgusting team. This is a team that I think plays very much so into like what I like. Garchomp, Zapdos, Pecharunt. Yeah, sometimes you're let down by Tinkaton as your only fairy because it doesn't resist close combat, it has to do like a lot of things. You really want Tinkaton to be doing one, maybe two things, but it's an awesome partner with Pecharunt. I really like Umbreon next to Pecharunt as well. Terra Mew is like this Joker card that you can just do whatever with. One of the few good spinners, Cyclizar, is there. I don't really know about the Ludicolo and the Charger Bug, and I don't know how often you're going to bring the Entei, but that top 8 is fantastic. A criticism might be like, okay, we don't have enough like top tier mons. We kind of skipped out on like a first rounder like Great Tusk in exchange for Garchomp, but Labs wanted to play with Garchomp, so here it is. And it's not like this team doesn't have offensive threats. This Terra Keldeo has had a lot of success over the past like 6 to 12 months in Smogon Tours. I think it's going to have a lot of success in PBO this year across all the divisions as well. This team is such a beast. Kind of similar to Sydney. I think it might be difficult to steer if Labs kind of doesn't have the prep work or doesn't know how they want to use the Mew. They don't have to bring the Mew, but I think there's a risk that this team could be built to be like too slow, or it doesn't apply enough offensive pressure and just kind of waits for hazards and for Pecharunt to like solve problems until Keldeo can like sweep through. That's the risk for me. Is there anything that jumps out for you, Kato?
I have very little to say other than the fact that this is probably one of the most well-rounded teams that we have in Crystal. I can't find that many flaws, if any. The one being, you already mentioned, Tinkaton being your only fairy. You have ways to circumvent that, obviously. All the very few lackings that you can find in Terra Keldeo, you can make up for with Mew, with Garchomp. There are so many ways you can cover a lot of your weaknesses on this team. I think flexibility is probably the one word I would use to describe this team. You can have this team built to be so many different things, and a lot of it revolves around your Mew, your Garchomp, your Keldeo, your Tinkaton, your Pecharunt. A lot of those pieces are just, you can do so many things with them. They have so many moves, set variety. Zapdos provides very keen resistances and immunities to make this team function the way it can. There's just there's so many good things going on with this team, and so many things that help cover up its weaknesses. It just makes it probably one of the biggest nightmares to try and find, how do I beat this team? Because anything that you can think of, you can probably do something to shut it down. Or Keldeo can probably do something to overpower you and just sweep through the rest of your team. Or Garchomp can just shut down any offensive strategies that you might have and just give you enough chip damage to run you back to the little hole that you came from. There's just so many things that you think you might have this team pinned down, but then they just bring something like a Life Orb Cyclizar that just wrecks your entire team. There's so many possibilities. There's so many good things I like. There's so many cool things. If I could say one thing about one team that I've ever seen while doing something like this is the one team that I could say, can we trade? Can we just like switch teams and I want to use this? Because this looks like one of the most creatively abundant teams that I have seen. So I have a lot of good things to say about this. One thing that I could say negatively, the Charger Bug is there. And actually, no, I would say Ludicolo would be the weaker link for me. And even then, the Water Grass is not a bad typing to have. Having a Swift Swim to counter any odd stupid Rain Frog that might jump onto your screen, which we didn't really see in this division, so that might just be one knock to have on him. But I don't really have too much to say on the wake of the negative sides. Or I would have to spend probably an hour to figure out, okay, how do I dissect this team and how do I find a way to break it open?
Yeah, I don't love this team as a matchup for you. I think there are some mons that would actually have a really good matchup into this. So like Weavile hits the Cyclizar, hits the Garchomp, hits the Zapdos, hits the Pecharunt, hits the Mew before Terra. How many hits is Tinkaton going to take? Because it doesn't have any recovery. There, you can find like Mons that are going to have good or decent matchups into this. We have it as the top of our tier 2. I think you could probably justify in kind of any combination. You know, Snowpoint, Columbus, Sydney, and Carvanha. I think those were pretty decidedly the top, or the kind of 4 in this clump, where they're not the favorite, but we expect them to all be very strong and in playoffs. If I were going up against this team, I think Petront does a lot for the glue of this team defensively. Definitely Zapdos in some matchups, but I expect it to be Petront. Going for mid-ground attacks just to keep that Petront as low as you can. You can taunt it, you can encore it. Just really take advantage of whatever kind of type matchup advantage that you have. If you can crack the Petront or crack the Zapdos, which are going to be the fundamental defensive pieces on this team, then that's going to be your opening. And lastly, for another unbiased opinion, soaring, we have the Icirrus City Infernapes as our favorite for the season.
You guys feel that?
I don't feel that.
It feels cold. It feels cold all of a sudden.
I know.
Is it snowing? Is it? Are we in Icirrus City?
I can't believe it. Porygon Z on the team? Is this real?
All right, I'm going to sit up here and I'm going to be a hater for a little bit.
A lot of people agree with you in that.
I hate Terraquaquaval.
What?
I do. I loathe Terraquaquaval. I think it is like a cheese mon. I think the Moxie Aqua Step Terra is like, it should be Terra banned, just simply because it's not fun. Like, I don't like this. All right, you can get me behind like the Terra Moxie Salamence a little bit against the Gyarados. This Quaquaval, I don't like it. I'm not a fan, Soaring. I think this should be banned. I would like to appeal to the powers that be for a mid-season ban, if only because it would screw over a lot of teams. Very strong team.
That's so Shock School.
Dragapult, obviously it can be this great offensive mon with, you know, Choice Spec Shadow Ball. It can be a great glue piece. Same thing with Torn T. It gets the Regenerator, it gets Knockoff, it gets U-Turn, it gets Nasty Plot. Like, you can run a lot with that. If I had a later pick in round 1, I might have picked Ting-Lu. Ting-Lu just does so much for your team, and I am Hazard Stack pilled. You can run a lot of interesting Jirachi sets. I think teams take it as their primary steel type typically, and it gets locked into, well, I needed to do typical steel type roles, but you don't have to with this team because you've got the Ting-Lu. I don't know how often Jirachi's going to Terra over Quaquaval, but I would really like to see Aiden put forward a lot of interesting Jirachi sets this season. Serena, it's a spinner. It doesn't blow you away, but it's fine. I like Azu. I like Azu a lot. I'm assuming it's going to be run defensively, but it does have that ability to dish back more damage than you're expecting with a huge power. I love Muck. I love Carbink as like these really cheap mons that give you like a type check. Like Muck is like a mon that has like a decent matchup against like Pecharon. It's like, huh, this mon is like really annoying for me this week. So a great find by Aiden. Porygon Z, I don't know how often the Porygon Z is going to be brought. There are some interesting sets that you could run like light screens around it, and then have like an agility life orb Porygon Z. You could do some interesting things. It seems like a fun mon to game plan with. Obviously, I am the Philly PZs, but I look at that thing and I'm like, I could just get like a better mon, something. But you know, that's me. I like the thicker things. PZ is kind of I don't want to say, what, not skinnier, frailer. That's the word I was looking for. This team has a lot of win conditions. It doesn't feel locked into one thing or another. I would love to see Aiden get mug pilled for a week and run like a choice band max offense Ting-Lu and have Carbink or Jirachi be like the rock setter. Because criticisms would be like, there's no ghosts. You don't really want to run Rapid Spin on Quaquaval, but then you're going to bring Quaquaval and Serena. This team is potentially vulnerable to like a knock hazard stack team, because it just doesn't want to run Rapid Spin, but this team can just run away with it. Torn, I would say, might be a mon that is forced to be a wall breaker for this team more than it would like. I know there are some people who don't like kind of key stab moves that have miss potential. So I wouldn't be surprised if Aiden, one of the losses that they find in the regular season just comes down to, they missed a meteor beam from Jirachi, or Torn missed like 2 Bleak Wind Storms or something funky like that. I expect this team to be 6-2 or better. This team is gross. Cats, how do you feel about going up against this week 7?
Yeah, this is probably the most lopsided team that we have. I think the point you make about the breaking power of this team kind of lacking a little bit. I think that's a very valid thing. Torn having to pull its own weight. Pulp might have to be offensive more times than not in order to kind of break down the things that Quack wants to feast on. Jirachi. There are weeks we've seen the stored power Jirachi work before, especially last season. You'd probably be bringing you'd like to have defensive Azu on this team, but some weeks you probably need to bring the choice band Aquajet, the choice band Play Rough. You probably need to bring that some weeks just because it could be lacking a little bit, but all the key defensive pieces are here. You have Tinglu, which the fact that it's Terra is actually the most intriguing thing about this team for me. Being able to change the typing of Tinglu, Ground Dark is already a really good type, especially for the ability and the stats that it does have. But being able to change this to like a fairy type or a water type, just something that can just get rid of a lot of its weaknesses and then replace it with some really good defensive attributes on top of its already good stats and ability, then you have one of the best defensive guys, period. Honestly, I really like the idea of it. Now, obviously, you do have Quack, who demands that Terra Electric, that Terra Fly, that Terra, yada 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 yada. I like the prospects of Tinglu being Terra, but if you're looking at offensive potential, you kind of don't really want to bring it too often, which makes me sad because I really want to see it happen, but. Nothing really much more to complain about that hasn't already been touched on with this team. Very lopsided. It's going to be tough to deal with. You bring 6, pretty much the same 6 every week. Maybe bring Muck and Azu interchangeably. Bring Carbink for some screens or rocks. But that's about all that I can say about it.
I could totally see Aiden bringing this to like one of the teams that struggles for like offensive threats or really like doesn't have a ton of speed and struggles to like get going, and Aiden wins like 5-0 or 6-0 just simply because the other team can't break through. Jirachi gets Wish, right? Like Wish pass into the Tinglu with the Torn with Regenerator. And well, I don't know, this is not going to be a fun matchup for a number of teams. I expect Aiden to rack up the point differential. If Aiden is not the number 1 seed at the end of this, I'm going to be really disappointed. Kind of my frame of reference for the PBO is Raven's team last season, where it had Palafin, Terra Annihilate, Glow King, Bax, Torn T. Is this on that level? Probably not in terms of like offensive threats, but I think it's potentially even more defensively. High expectations, Aiden. Don't mess it up.
All right. With all the teams gone through, a quick little review. Who do y'all have for the finalists? What are the 2 teams that make the finals and who wins? It's tradition in every div. What do we think?
You want to go first, Star?
Or I can go first too if y'all want me to go first.
No, I kind of think we should start off with Kowtow saying I'm going to make the finals.
Yeah, I think
I'll save that. I'll save that for after everybody's gone. We need to give everybody else their flowers.
All right, I'll go.
I think.
I'll go.
Go for it.
I'll go. So after looking at all these teams, Icirrus City is. I think he was won last season in Power Kings too, and he went on to win it all. So, and I'm a very superstitious person, so that's a good omen for him to be in this position again in Crystal. But with looking at the rosters, looking at the teams, I kind of want some spice. Do I think he'll make playoffs? For sure. Semifinals, probably. But I would like to see, and with the players that I know, so I'm sorry to all the new players, but I know Stoutlands, I know Columbus, I know Icirrus City, I know Pitt, I know New York, I know Sydney, and Norwalk, you're coming back, yes, but still, my point stands. I think the Sydney Sylveons and the just had it. Who was it?
Did it start with an L and end with a abs?
No, I don't know Labs. I would like to see a Sydney Columbus finals because Sydney made it, didn't win it, and Countdown was so close and also didn't make it. So I'd like to see those two teams come back and go at it. And when you have to choose between those two, and I know both of them, it's hard to give an answer. It's really flip a fucking coin. But which Mons would I want to see win? Look, I'm a Little Hill fan at the heart. Eject Pack Tatsugiri, I'm giving it to Columbus, man. I love to see a Tatsugiri win a chip. Throw it back. Columbus, I'm gonna give it to you. I'm gonna give the flowers to Columbus.
Yeah, Soaring's a little superstitious. Me, I'm just stitious. I think playoffs are. Yeah, I think playoffs are going to come down to matchup, which might be the uninteresting answer. Like Carvanha versus Sydney, you have the Iron Valiant, the Sneasler, and the Terra Crown against like a Terra Gambit. I think that'll be like a lot of fun. I would like to see Walt do really well. I'm such a fan of the Ursaluna Glamora teams. I think you just make like so many interesting sets. Who do I think will be in the finals? I think it'll be Aiden and it'll be someone else. We're going to have teams make a lot of noise. I'm really excited for the upsets because I think the upsets are going to be more telling about kind of the top 6 teams that we expect to contend for the title more than the wins will.
So I'm going to give you 2 timelines, okay? I'm going to give you the good timeline and the bad timeline. I'm going to start with the bad timeline. I'm going to start with the bad timeline. So the bad timeline is Apocalypse. Mr. Aiden gets to the finals, and his opponent is LAV at Lavs. Those two are in the finals. In my pick, my way too early predictions is going to be okay. Eeny, meeny, miny, Lavs. I'm going to pick Lavs to go all the way this season. That'll be my crystal pick. Now, the good timeline. So, you start with week 1. You take care of business. You go to week 2, you take care of business. You go through week 3, you take care of business. You go week 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Business taken care of. Go over to the quarterfinals, semifinals. Get to the matchup of the century between Icirrus City Infernapes and the Columbus Conkeldurrs, and you know who comes out on top. It's the Columbus Conkeldurrs taking this at the 6-0 against the Icirrus City Infernapes all the way, baby. It's the Conkeldurrs. You know it.
Everybody loves the match. Everybody loves the Conkeldurrs.
And that is a good timeline. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens with Crystal. I think this could be the new sunset in terms of competitive teams.
There's also a hidden third one where it's Icirrus City and Stoutlands again. And there's a hidden fourth one where it's both 2 new players. So I'll also keep that in mind.
That's the dark timeline.
Yeah, that's like we did not see this coming. But Jarv, you've been stalling. What do you think? Who's your winner? Is it?
I already said.
You said Icirrus City?
I already said. You weren't listening to me?
You said Icirrus City? I thought you said Icirrus City versus someone.
Yeah.
Who's the someone?
I don't know. It'll be matchup dependent.
All right.
Well, you heard it here, folks. You heard it here first, folks. It'll be matchup dependent.
It'll be matchup dependent.
That's your winner.
We got Icirrus City Infernapes versus matchup dependent.
Versus placeholder team.
No, I'm so excited to be the den mother for.
Team.
Right, to be the den mother for this this division. I think
Den
this is gonna be
mother.
a lot of fun. I'm gonna bring you guys a lot of fun content. Sometimes I'm gonna be a hater. Sometimes I'm gonna really like gas up these teams. I'm gonna put in lore. We're gonna have the Steel Ball run of the century for the Crystal division. Sunset has their Thunderdome, but Crystal has their Steel Ball run. Let's get into week 1. So
That's amazing. And with that, that'll conclude Crystal our preseason power rankings just in time for the Neon game happening in 11 minutes to date the video. And thank you, Countdown. Thank you, Jarv, for giving me your time and effort into this. And I hope everyone in the Crystal Division enjoys the content that will be coming to them. And without further ado, we'll see y'all in week 1, baby.
Thank you, friends. Goodbye.
bye.
See y'all week 5.